Hi.
Hello.
I just wanted to thank you for taking the time to meet with me. So I sat in on your lesson yesterday for grade 5 English Language Arts, and I just want to reflect on the lesson that I observed yesterday. How do you think the class went, and how successful do you think the lesson was?
I think the lesson was very successful. Students were interested in learning about Treacher-Collins syndrome. This is a diagnosis of one of the characters that we're reading about in the novel Wonder. In the past, students would often ask me, well, what does this character look like? So I like to tie into the curriculum a research task. So it gives the students the opportunity to look up different images of real-life people living with Treacher-Collins syndrome, and they can make a connection to the main character that we were learning about in the novel Wonder. So they were involved in meaningful discussions, and they seemed to really grasp the task and enjoy what they were researching.
Now, do you think the students learned what you intended for them to learn? If so, how do you know that?
I believe so. Throughout observing their group presentations and their discussions, they were really engaged in the lesson. They were sharing a lot of ideas. I sat in with a few groups, and they were giving me a lot of good feedback. Many of the students were on task, and I was able to measure that with the use of communicators. I was able to assess that every student was pretty much on task with their research questions, and they were really gaining a good understanding of Treacher-Collins syndrome.
Now, I noticed that you have the students sitting in groups. How did you determine which students would be sitting in the groups?
So what I really like to do is I like to arrange the students in heterogeneous grouping. What I feel is when I establish more of like an independent group assignment, they really work well in all different level learners. So basically what I like to do is I like to arrange them in high, medium, low, give students that are at the higher level an opportunity to have a task of group monitor. They could really drive instruction and start teaching the students and give them a sense of independence and responsibility within their groups.
Now, I also noticed when you were assigning group monitors to the different groups, was that predetermined? And if so, how did you determine which student would be the group monitor?
I actually really just decide who the group monitors on the fly. I really like to see who's really engaged in the lesson, who's really focused on what I'm explaining and going over directions. So at that moment, I really like to select someone who is following directions, they're prepared, they're sitting up, they're alert, and it does have to do a lot with how they're in class and how they are learning at that time.
Excellent. Do you feel that if you departed from your plan at all during the lesson, and if so, how?
So I definitely had to depart a little bit from my lesson. I did have a little situation where one of the groups had a little bit of a disagreement. So after I assigned the task of group monitor, timekeeper, different jobs in the room, students were having a little bit of trouble assigning different categories. So I had to kind of step in as the group monitor, take over that role. Usually I would like to sit back and allow the students to kind of solve their problems through discussion to prepare them for real life situations. However, I felt as though that at this time I didn't want to give that responsibility to the students at this time, so I had to kind of redirect them a little bit, but after some time they gained control and they were able to move on with the lesson successfully.
Now, I noticed that you used several different strategies in your lesson. You used whole group, you used direct instruction, you used small group, you handed out different tasks, you assigned them different jobs within the group. Do you feel that you engaged the students, or you could have engaged them a little more? If so, what other strategies could you have implemented?
Well, some things that I did do is I used the communicators. I want to make all the students responsible and have that accountable talk. So what I like to do is I like them to work independently and think on their own, reflect about their answer, and then just kind of write down notes for them to share with their groups. So that way all students, are accountable for that. It does work out pretty well when I have the group monitor calling out names to all the students, making sure that everyone has an opportunity to share with each other. And I think it gives them a little bit of comfort having that independent time to gather their thoughts and copy down those notes on their communicators.
Excellent. I also noticed when you assessed that you used informal discussions and questioning, you walked around to the different groups you sat in, and I also noticed that you had a rubric present. Now, did the students see this rubric beforehand, or was this the first time that they saw it?
Yes, the students did have a copy of this rubric on Google Classroom. We have done opinion writing in class so far, so it's the same rubric that I like to use for informative writing and opinion writing. So they were familiar with it. We did have a review of all the scoring. We like to focus on that score of 4 so that they know what is expected of them. And they all received hard copies. They have digital copies. So it's just a good thing that I like for them to always look at before writing exercise so that they can just kind of gauge where they want to be at a time.
Excellent. Now, there's always room for improvement. Describe some ways in which your overall instructional program can be improved.
I definitely, for my next group assignment, I would like to assign smaller groups. I feel as though that making the group a little bit smaller, giving more assignments, longer tasks would help benefit the students' learning. The groups right now were a little bit on the bigger side, so it was kind of hard to have everyone have a lot of time to share their ideas and opinions for that. So I would really change that up, adding smaller groups, assigning more responsibilities, more group monitors, and giving more students the opportunity to teach and drive the instruction.
Excellent. So now, in case you're just unfamiliar with when I came in to observe, what I do is I script and I try to get as many quotes and write down as many things that I saw during the lesson. And a few of the things that I did notice was you used a very wide and a great range of different approaches that included the direct instruction, the small group instruction, assigning different tasks, and I feel like it definitely made the students more accountable and they had to participate in order to be successful in their group. I also noticed that the students have a clear understanding of classroom rules and procedures. Everything was on point. Transitioning students to new tasks or just getting their attention with the use of the clap. It's definitely been practiced. You can tell the students respond to it and they understand what their roles are in the classroom. I also liked how you incorporated a lot of technology into the lesson with our 21st century skills. I also feel like that pulls the students more into the lesson. I like the implementation of the Chromebooks and also using the internet, and I also liked how in your lesson you explain to them reliable and unreliable sources, because not only is that excellent in the classroom, but in their daily life as well. I also did notice the communicators, and I liked how you implemented the use of the communicators in the lesson. Again, it made them all accountable. They had to write down an answer, they had to show their answer, they had to express what their answers were. I'd like to see just a little more integration of higher level questioning next time, instead of maybe just saying, what is the definition of this? Maybe you can have the students say, can you explain this? Or can you provide an example? Or if someone did this, how could you change it? Also, I noticed when you had the test words up there, again with the definitions, maybe instead of just repeating the definitions, there's an excellent lab activity on the smartboard, and that you can create a lab activity where the students can go up and they can sort and they can move the things around, they can put them in order, so that's something interesting that maybe we can work on. In addition, maybe perhaps utilizing the use of popsicle sticks instead of. Sometimes I know we tend to always call on the students that raise their hand because their hand's up faster, so we tend to call on them faster. Or even again, the smartboard has an excellent resource called a randomizer where students are chosen at random. So this way the students don't feel like you're always picking or choosing the same students over and over again. And in addition, then everyone has to be ready because they never know who's going to be chosen next. Do you have any questions for me?
No, I think that's a really great idea and great tool. I can't wait to utilize the use of the smartboard and randomizing selections, and I look forward to including that into my future lessons.
Well, excellent. Well, I'll work on getting those resources for you, and we can put a plan in place.
Thank you.
Thank you.